Hey friends, how's it going? Ash here. Welcome back to Gents. Hope you're doing so well. Today I've got 10 of the top trending fragrances right now. So basically, if you want to know what people are buying right now at retail stores, these are the fragrances. And number one, oh wait. Nah. We've got the actual fragrances that are selling here. These are the ones that people are really buying. I'll have all of them linked in the description below, so feel free to check them out down there. And the way that I did this was basically I went to 4 of the biggest retailers in the US: Ulta, Sephora, Dillard's, and Macy's. I sorted by best selling, went through basically like the top 25 on each one of those websites, and kind of picked out the ones that appeared to be recurring the most often and the highest up in each one of those lists. So it's not exact down to a dollar amount, obviously. Maybe next year I'll be able to get my hands on those numbers, and if I do, I'll share them with you. But these are what's selling right now at all those retailers. Now I've got 3 fragrances that were kind of just on the precipice, you know, almost in the top 10. So let me share those with you real quick. They were Bad Boy Cobalt, Luna Rossa Ocean Eau de Parfum, and good old Light Blue. So these 3 fragrances are all selling pretty well, but just not quite as much as the top 10, at least based off of what I was seeing in those rankings. Maybe a little bit of a surprise here, but when you really think about it, not too much of one. Luna Rossa Ocean, a blue fragrance by Prada, you would figure that'd be selling pretty well. And it did look like the Eau de Parfum was outperforming the Eau de Toilette as far as this one goes. Light Blue has been a bestseller for a long time. And then Bad Boy Cobalt, you know, a fresh kind of fragrance in the Bad Boy line. It makes sense. So let's sit you guys over here, because you're not really in the official top 10 here. You're close enough. Before we jump into the official top 10, here are some codes. Use these if you'd like to save some money. Going into October, the Lucky Scent code is changing. Gents 10 will be the code. 2023 Gents will no longer work. So keep that in mind. All right, now this is roughly in order, but it gets to be more in the actual order the higher up we go. So it'll make sense as we go along. Number 10 is 1 Million by Paco Rabanne. The original 1 Million, still the best seller in the line, which is something. Now this has long been pigeonholed as a clubbing fragrance, but I actually think it's much more versatile than that, especially in the cooler seasons, you know, fall and winter time. It's actually got a really nice opening. When you go back and smell this one, it's not as sweet as a lot of the fragrances coming out nowadays. I mean, it still is a sweet fragrance, don't get me wrong, but it was much more of an outlier when it released versus nowadays. I like it, pretty pleasant, which makes sense because, I mean, it's selling for a reason, right? People like it. Really good performance on this one, still a good compliment puller as well, and just sneaking in at number 10. Number 9 is Born in Roma Intense from Valentino, and this one I like a bunch. Really enjoy it. It was one of my top 10 fragrances for fall this year. Yeah, I would take this 10 times out of 10 over the original Born in Roma. I mean, it's a little bit similar to that one, but I think improved pretty much the entire way through. Good amount of vanilla in here, a fresh lavender around the edge, and then vetiver in the base. Extremely versatile, nearly year round. I think that summer probably wouldn't work so well, but spring, fall, winter, daytime or evening, this stuff is great, and it's a big compliment puller. So not a surprise to see this one selling well. Number 8 is the Most Wanted Parfum from Azzaro, and also the Most Wanted Eau de Parfum is doing pretty well also. Just this one seems to be outselling at most places. This is a really good release for Azzaro, I gotta say, because Azzaro is not quite on the level of like a Paco Rabanne or a Valentino even, or you know, Armani, Versace, brands like that. For Azzaro, for the longest time, it was basically Chrome, right? And I'm talking the original Chrome, not one of the 52,000 flankers. Then Wanted came out, did okay. Wanted by Night, very popular in the community, not quite as popular in terms of like retail sales. Wanted Tonic, but then the Most Wanted, yeah, doing really nice for this brand. And it makes sense why, especially with this one. Got a bit of a smoky woodiness in there, a lot of vanilla. Once again, I know both of these have vanilla very prominently, but they do it in 2 different ways. Little ginger off the top here as well. Red ginger, I believe, is the official note. Vaguely reminiscent of fragrances in the style of like Stronger With You, but doing its own tweak, its own twist on that style. The Most Wanted Parfum, another fragrance that really ticks all the boxes for what people are looking for. Good performance, good compliment factor, and it smells smells good. Number 7, Le Mans Elixir. Now this is my style right here. These last 3 fragrances, I love all of them. Le Mans Elixir is just, it's freaking awesome. I love this stuff. I'm really tempted to make this the fragrance of the day, the scent of the day, because I'm not wearing one as of when I'm filming this. And I had another fragrance picked out, but now I'm being tempted. So it smells similar to Le Mans Le Parfum. It did look like this was outperforming Le Mans Le Parfum on all the websites that I looked at. Again, as time goes, things will change. Things will fluctuate on bestseller lists. So this is to an extent a snapshot in time. You could go forward 3, 4, 5 months and it could be switched up a bit. I would imagine most of the top sellers are still gonna be the top sellers, but toward the bottom end of that top 10, I could see things flipping around a little bit. So anyway, this one, it smells a bit like Le Mans Le Parfum, but then it is elevated. The powder is removed a little bit or dialed down a little bit. It has this additional sweetness from honey in here that I think is great. Tobacco, one of the notes that's added in here as well. It's just a fantastic fragrance for fall and winter time, so it would make sense that this is selling well right now. It's getting into the time of season that this is gonna work best. Probably the most hyped fragrance release of the year as far as designers goes. So the only surprise would be that it's not higher, but still doing really well and it deserves it. So this one for my fall list this year was number 1. So yeah, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Eros. This is Eros Eau de Parfum. It looked like Eros Eau de Parfum on some websites was selling better than the Eau de Toilette. Other places, the Eau de Toilette was a little bit higher, but it was always either the Eau de Parfum or the Eau de Toilette. Flame and Parfum, yeah, just not cutting it as far as the retail websites go. Eau de Parfum, though, is the one that I most often recommend to people who are wanting an Eros fragrance, but they don't know which one to get because it sort of, you know, splits the difference. A little bit richer, a little bit more grown up than the Eau de Toilette, but it still has a kind of playful edge. Whereas the Parfum is gonna take that maturity a little bit further, and then Flame is a twist on the DNA, the style of fragrance, although Flame is really good too. So this has been Versace's bestseller ever since it came out. Eros Eau de Toilette has been their top performing fragrance, and the Eau de Parfum, like I said, is kind of right there with it. So either one of those, this position. Because the problem with this, in terms of like the top 10, if you don't just include all the fragrances in a line as one spot, then the top 10 ends up becoming like the top 3 or 4 lines. Yeah, so it would be like Eros Eau de Toilette has a spot, Eros Eau de Parfum has a spot, and then these start getting pushed off the top 10. So both Eros Eau de Parfum and Eau de Toilette coming in right here. Number 5, Aqua de Jo Eau de Toilette. That is right. Aqua de Jo, the OG, is still the best-selling Aqua de Jo. Now, obviously, over the years, it has slowly dropped down the rankings. I mean, it's not in the top 3 anymore, but I think pretty much any fragrance brand out there would take the sales success of Aqua de Jo any day of the week. Best-selling men's fragrance of all time, after all. So Aqua de Jo Eau de Toilette is outperforming Profundo and Parfum. And depending on which website you look at, some of them have Profundo selling better than Parfum, and some have Parfum selling better than Profundo. But the fact that Profundo is outselling Parfum on some of these websites is probably not the greatest news for Armani. Yeah. Because that kind of happened with Profumo. You know, as time went on, Profumo started selling less than some of the other flankers and obviously the original, which led to that being replaced by Parfum, which is quite similar to Profumo. And in its first year of release, Parfum is already kind of dropping down a little bit. But again, I don't have the full numbers for the year or anything like that, so I can't tell you for sure, like, oh, it's definitely done worse than they wanted or whatever. Like I said earlier, hopefully I can get those numbers for 2023 sales numbers when we head into 2024, and if I can, then I'll go ahead and let you guys know kind of where everything shook out. But the Eau de Toilette Aqua de Jo is still the best seller, and that was pretty clear. It was better than Profundo and Parfum on every single website that I looked at. Old habits die hard. You know, people that have been wearing this for a long time, they go through a bottle, they buy another, go through a bottle, buy another. It's one of those deals with fragrances like 1 Million over here or Eros, where brands really want people to like cling on to that fragrance and keep buying, you know, be a repeat customer. Because when that happens, this is what happens. You have fragrances that for decades will be in the top 10 bestsellers, and that's just printing money at that point. As far as Aqua de Jo itself, I love it. It was my signature scent for a long time. I love most of the flankers. Very clean, fresh, easy to wear, appealing, compliment beast. There's a lot to like about it. We are in the top 4 And I would pretty much guarantee you that you know 3 of these top 4 just off the top of your head. So number 4, Y Eau de Parfum from Yves Saint Laurent. Y Eau de Toilette was actually doing really well also on these websites. It wasn't like well enough to crack into here, but the re-release of Y Eau de Toilette was, you know, it was top 20, which is maybe not fantastic, maybe not amazing, but at least not a complete flop as far as that looks like right now anyway. Y Eau de Parfum though is the star of the show. This is the big seller from the line. This is the one that goes to bat with the other big dogs in the blue fragrance realm. Really, really nice performance, very appealing, sweet apple off the top, amber wood as it dries down, hyper versatile, pretty much use this year round. Some people don't reach for it in summer because they think it's a little bit too cloying. But if you spray a little bit less in summer, it works well. I like it a lot, of course. I mean, I've talked about it ad nauseum. So Y Eau de Parfum number 4. Number 3, cracking into the top 3, YSL Myself. That's right, Myself. This stuff is toward the top of every website that has it as far as bestsellers goes. And it makes total sense. Pretty much everything that I thought about this one when it came out is coming true. First time I smelled this, as I said in the first impression video, it reminded me of a number of different things, but it also smells like its own thing. So you can smell this and be like, oh, you know, it's kind of like that, but it doesn't exactly smell like it. And it's kind of like that, but it doesn't exactly smell like it. It does its own thing. It's sweet, but not too sweet. It's fresh, it's clean, you know, a little soapy as well. Just a crazy attention grabber. Everybody, like legitimately everybody that I've had smell this has thought it smells great. So those are all positives, right? But I also knew, smelling this the first time, that this is the type of scent that is gonna get hated on by the fragrance community, which of course is not the world at large, but like hardcore fragrance people were gonna smell this and be offended that it wasn't unique enough or genre defining enough, boundary pushing. It does smell really pleasant though. It just smells so easy to wear. Like I said, it's a compliment beast. People just are drawn to it. So your average person going out to a store, you know, they see the new YSL, spray it on, and then their girlfriend or wife or whoever is like, oh, that smells awesome. That's great. That's sexy. They're going to buy it. So I pretty much knew this would happen. I think anybody who is really into fragrances had to know that it was just gonna sell like crazy, sell like hotcakes, that as soon as people got their nose on this, it was like, oh, yep, whoop, that's going in the cart. But that more hardcore people were going to crap on it. My wife is like in love with that stuff though, like. So YSL got number 4 and number 3 here, doing good. And I would say with the success that this is having right now, get ready for some flankers. Yeah. Get ready for Parfum Intense or something like that coming up next. YSL Myself Elixir. I've said this as well. One thing with Myself is it kind of reminded me of like Guilty, Gucci Guilty, when that one came out. When Gucci Guilty came out, people were crapping on it, still crapped on it for a long time, and basically said, oh, Gucci Guilty is the most boring thing ever, the most generic thing ever. It's crap, it's trash, everyone hates it, blah, blah, blah. And then Guilty went on to be a bestseller for years and years and years and years and years. This reminds me of that in the sense of people going, oh, it's the worst thing I've ever smelled, bro. I had to scrub it off because I hate it so much. And then, oh, surprise, it made $40 million or something, and YSL is just like, well, you guys hate it, well, sucks for you. Number 2, Bleu de Chanel Eau de Parfum, also the Eau de Toilette, also the Parfum. The Eau de Parfum's the best seller, that's the one typically at the top. The Eau de Toilette and Parfum, depending on what site you're on, you know, one could be higher than the other, but the Eau de Parfum, pretty much the winner here. Not a surprise, when you look at the top 20 best-selling fragrances of last year, Bleu de Chanel was number 2, so yeah, it's still number 2. Big surprise, nothing has changed from last year to this year to dethrone Bleu de Chanel from where it was. In terms of just straight up versatility, I think Bleu de Chanel is probably of the big 3 blue fragrances the most versatile. To me, it comes across the classiest of the bunch. It's not really a negative, but I would say it's also the least loud of the bunch. So Y Eau de Parfum and a certain other fragrance have more projection, are gonna get you noticed typically a little bit more, are gonna pull a little more unsolicited compliments than Bleu de Chanel, but I do think this is the classiest. I think this is the most elegant, sophisticated of the big 3. Just really well done. Just, I mean, it speaks for itself. Number 1, What a surprise. It's Sauvage. This is the Eau de Parfum. The Eau de Toilette, the Eau de Parfum, and Elixir, the best sellers in the Sauvage line. Sauvage Parfum, definitely the odd man out. And at most websites, as of now, it looked like the Eau de Parfum was the best-selling Sauvage, though the Eau de Toilette sometimes was a little bit close. Elixir was typically a bit below the Eau de Toilette and Eau de Parfum, and a lot of that probably has to do with the price point. At retail, Sauvage Elixir is way more expensive than the Eau de Parfum or Eau de Toilette. So this one gets you very similar to the Eau de Toilette, only a little more vanilla, a little bit smoother. It still has that metallic vibe, but it's not as aggressive in the opening as in the EDT. So for a lot of people, the Eau de Parfum is going to be a little more versatile than the EDT. But again, it pretty much is the big three in Sauvage. Eau de Toilette, Eau de Parfum, Elixir, those are the big sellers. Parfum, they just kind of whiffed on that one a little bit. Looks like Bleu de Chanel Parfum is doing better than Sauvage Parfum pretty much everywhere that has both. Which, to be fair, I think Bleu de Chanel Parfum is better than Sauvage Parfum. I think it's pretty obvious. So there we go. This is kind of a snapshot in time of the designer fragrances that are selling at retail stores right now. These are kind of the first men out, and this is roughly your top 10. I would say from like this point up, from like 6 up, these are the best sellers pretty much everywhere, with like maybe a random odd man out on one website, but on most of them, these are your best sellers. And then these right here are kind of the ones that do well enough across all the websites that pushes them into the top 10. So there we go. These are what's trending. This is what people are buying. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. See you guys again tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.